Flip your tunes. That is Flip your tunes. That is
Hey guys, this is Zach.
This is Evan.
And that was our new theme song by Pizzas, who is a DJ who is an awesome individual. And you know what? I've heard a rumor.
What rumor?
I heard a rumor that he's better than Daft Punk.
Really?
Yes, I've heard that rumor. It's unfounded, but I definitely go down the description, check out his Facebook, which should be linked down there, and thank him and say that how
Thank
awesome
you very
he is.
much. It's very good. I think it'll be a few years before we can decide whether or not he's better than Daft Punk. But
well,
still,
I've heard other rumors that that Pizzas might be Jesus. I actually have heard those
really
rumors.
like just walking around.
Yeah,
Cool.
and he is a DJ.
So it's music by Jesus. That explains why it's so heavenly.
Yes.
All right.
So today we're going to be talking a little bit about anime dubbing, which
Specifically anime voice dubbing, which is when we're talking about anime dubbing, we're going to be specifically talking about American redubbing of Japanese animation.
yeah,
Obviously. We do have a bit of experience in the field. We've done a few small projects and even gotten to meet at a few studios with big companies like Funimation.
yeah, Funimation, which is a local company actually.
Yeah,
shockingly local.
Here in Texas. It's probably the only reason we got to make it up there. Is 'cause
Yeah.
we could drive. And we've done quite a bit of research into it as well as the other aspects of animation. It's one of the fields you really need to cover when it comes to international relations and how the landscape of animation and what it affects can change based upon region with how it's structured and changed.
Exactly. But first we should go ahead and start a little bit with how it kind of started, or how, not really how it started, but how it really started to come into prominence.
Yeah.
Because I'm guessing it started back, when we first started importing stuff.
Dubbing's been going on as long as film has been going on, and the idea that you can just redo the dialogue and have it play an entirely different area, or if you want to fix mistakes and the like. And the first anime ever made, Astro Boy, did come to America and was dubbed. That happened, and it's been doing it ever since the beginning. So there was really no time where we were detached from the phenomenon of dubbing stuff from other countries. But it didn't really come into huge prominence until the late 80s, early 90s.
Exactly. And because of course you talk about Speed Racer, you talk about Astro Boy, 60s, and that is basically the only things that we had for a while.
Yeah.
Or the only prominent things we had for a while, until we got to the 80s and 90s. In the 80s, we started to get what was Voltron? Was Voltron more 70s, more 80s?
I would imagine Voltron is late 70s, early 80s, I would think.
Yeah.
Anyway. I wasn't alive at the
yeah,
time. So.
but we definitely started getting stuff like Mobile Suit Gundam, which had come over at that point. And, of course, we talked a little bit in the last official episode at least, or no, episode before last official episode, when we talked about Saturday morning cartoons, we talked about how 80s was kind of the dead zone for cartoons.
Well, yeah, and and this is the really cool thing about it, is that in that country, the reason we started getting so much new anime to come in is because the industry was really starting to boom there and to be sort of respected more than it was. Because we had Tezuka and the like back then, and anime was always sort of in the background and worked for a lot more as an adult medium than it did here in America. But during the time when we started getting more of it over here in America is really when the industry started to grow rapidly, which explains why we got so much new stuff here and why it was getting bigger and flashier. I mean, the first things were Mobile Suit Gundam and Voltron, which were these huge animes that dealt with things that hadn't been done before.
Yeah, and with those, I was going to say that one of the main reasons that it kind of started to boom over here is, well, to be honest, because we were kind of in a dead zone, it's because of theft.
Yeah.
We basically stole series and kind of rebranded them and kind of mixed them. And we ended up with shows
with Transformers. Yeah,
we ended up with Transformers, with Robotech.
Yeah,
and just these shows that were just
the entire the Power Rangers and Beetleborgs and all things were pulled from the Sentai series. Yeah,
yeah. So 80s is not our finest moment.
And pretty much in all aspects of media.
In most aspects, the 80s kind of sucked.
Yeah. Well, I mean, anybody who was alive during it will tell you the stories. But the point is, as we began to come out of that, we began to see like a lot more quality put into the work specifically. Because you go back and you watch Astro Boy and Kimba, the White Lion, and Speed Racer, and you see there's a lot of rushing to get it done and get it out.
A lot of reuse of animation, a lot of
definitely
kind of sloppy.
Well, I mean, even in dubbing, you'll see just a lot of like quick reactions and stuff that could easily have been improved.
But again, more time. Stuff like this that we got were more the Saturday morning stuff. So Japan's not very different from America in that they were kind of lazy too.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to say that we're perfect. We're not going to say that they're perfect. We're humans.
Well, I mean, it was kind of all over because it was part of the industry medium. You know?
Yeah.
It didn't. Animation in that sense came. Originally, animation boom happened here in America, as we talked about, and it traveled overseas, and they basically used a lot of the same techniques as us, since they were borrowing the culture of it. So the laziness was kind of all over the map in that respect.
Yeah. Because, and I will say that, like, it's not that everything over there is lazy, because back in 60s, 70s, 80s, that's when you get stuff like Miyazaki starting to come into major prominence.
And that was, again, that was sort of a delay from, because the first animated films came here from America, like in the 40s, was Snow White, the first full-length animated feature, and they began borrowing techniques. And Miyazaki made some of the cool stuff. Castle of Cagliostro, Nausicaa in the Valley of the Wind.
Yeah, exactly. And well, we've kind of sidetracked with actual animation. Yeah. But
these are prominent within the industry, because if you look at the dubbing back then for those, there's a lot more caretaking than it was with the stuff we got Saturday mornings.
Yeah, with like the Speed Racer, where I don't even know if they even showed the name of the actors that are on there, because those were just it was literally just, let's get this person who just had a day off from his other work.
Let's just get it done.
Yeah.
And get it out there. And that's really, you know, one of the biggest points is that the quality comes from whatever your demographic is.
Yeah.
That's the amount of time you're going to put into it. One of the coolest things that happened in the 90s was we got Toonami.
We got Toonami, which we got the kind of resurgence of the Saturday morning cartoons, which if you want to know a little more about that, we made an episode a few.
We did.
No, I was going to say a few weeks. A little longer than a few weeks ago.
Couple episodes back.
Yeah. But we talked a little bit about the resurgence of the Saturday morning cartoons. Definitely thanks to the likes of Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, Pokemon, Digimon, Metabots.
A huge borrowing of Japanese animation that was later redubbed and placed within American markets. Now, in some cases, you got them where they were, you know, in a lot of ways, essentially held pretty true to what it originally was, like with Dragon Ball Z. Wasn't a whole lot of changes to the stories or the characters. It was pretty true to it, but with American dubbing, a lot of companies, particularly like 4Kids Entertainment and the like, changed a good amount of it in order to sort of localize it.
Yeah.
And this is one of the first aspects you get with redubbing, is that a lot of times things will go through sort of a metamorphosis in terms of story, and it affects how the culture impacts, you know, the society that it's being displayed in.
And it kind of has given a it's kind of given a stigmatization to the idea of localization.
Yes, exactly.
Where in localization, you should just mean that we take references that might not be understood by people and change it slightly so that we can still have the same impact while having a wider audience understand it.
Yeah. And a lot of people, you know, sometimes talk about how this may impact it negatively in a way that we're sort of suppressing the culture. But at its heart, I don't really think there's anything wrong with localization.
There isn't anything wrong. I was going to say that with the idea of 4Kids, and Bandai to an extent too did this, they were less localizing and more westernizing.
Yeah.
They were instead of taking ideals and making equivalencies, which is what localization usually does, it'll take like a joke or something and find a joke that is equal to it in our civilization. Yes. But what they were more doing is they were westernizing it, where they were taking the idea and completely changing it so that only American kids could understand
Whitewashing it.
Yeah, that's exactly what they were doing to a point.
And you get a lot of this, actually, we found, particularly having grown up in the Pokemon culture, you look at how it is in Japan where it originally originated, all the names are different, pretty much all around. And some of the interpretations, some of the episodes are completely edited in different ways.
Some of the episodes are completely taken out.
And this is all part of the redubbing and rebranding process of it. But it can lead to some confusion for people who ever, you know, if you ever meet a person of the original fan base, It can be obviously a lot of communication errors. There can be really good examples of redubbing, however, like the people who redubbed Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah,
Did amazing at it.
It's especially an amazing one. Outlaw Star had an amazing one.
Well, yes.
Tenchi Muyo did really well. And of course that goes back to Toonami.
Yeah.
Which I think is what helped anime dubbing back in the 90s and early 2000s.
I think it definitely helped create a boom, because I mean, up until that point, Pokemon and Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball had kind of, skyrocketed, given this industry a little bit of a push when it first started.
Yeah.
But Toonami really helped it spread out and flourish, because that was prime time television on the one channel that all kids were watching.
I wouldn't say prime time.
No?
Because most Toonami was midnight.
Really? I remember it being during the middle of the day.
I think they had an afternoon lineup.
Yeah, because I remember I would come home from school and then...
They had an afternoon lineup, but that's not prime time. Prime time is 7 to 9. So...
I'd count it as better than early morning anyway.
Yeah.
But the point is, that was enough of a push to the industry in order to help it really flourish. I mean,
yeah, they had the big names. You had, of course, you had Cowboy Bebop, you had Outlaw Star, Tenchi Muyo, Big O, which I actually never watched, but I have heard good things about. It was one of the original places that they played Dragon Ball Z, and it was kind of a feed-off thing, because Toonami was made as a way to kind of show DBZ. And in turn, because of Toonami's creation, they were able to introduce more shows that people might enjoy.
Yep.
And they were able to flourish from being basically being the anime hub of America.
Yeah. Another reason that I think it's not specifically anime dubbing, but it's the thing that I really think also helped a little bit to bolster the industry, is the video game industry began to grow and also began to be able to have full voice work done in it. So they got a lot from Japan that contributed to that as well, and just helped it really to spread out in terms of finding talent.
Yeah.
Within the industry, the process of it is actually pretty interesting, because when you're first laying out something and you're first producing it, the dubbing, you have a lot more chances for creativity in it.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to match it to anything on screen, so you just say whatever you want in whatever way you want it. With redubbing and with localization, you're not about to go through and redraw everything, or ask the people to redraw everything. So you have to time it and match the dialogue.
Yeah. And we'll get a little bit of that in a second, but as we kind of went into 2000s, I'd say about 2003, that's because from mid-90s to early 2000s, there was a huge anime boom in America.
Yeah.
Thanks to
huge anime.
Thanks to of Dragon Ball Z, which, by the way, I just off topic for a second, I looked it up recently. Dragon Ball Z is a shockingly old show.
Yeah.
A lot of people think it's a mid-90s show, because in America it was played in the mid-90s.
Being played, yeah.
Let's see, DBZ.
I think, doesn't the original Dragon Ball have its roots in the 70s?
Dragon Ball Z premiered in 1989.
Yeah.
And stopped playing in 1996.
Yeah.
So, and that's a lot. And I don't think we even really got a really big version of it until at least 98, maybe.
Right around there.
That's when
they were playing it, but it was sort of a specialized aspect of you watch it if you want to watch it. Not because it's what's on.
Which, talking about dubbing, it had a distinction of having two major dubs. One of them Ocean Group dub, and the other Funimation, which is the more famous one. And actually, recently they released a DVD set of the Ocean Group dub.
Nice.
So if you're interested in hearing not great dubbing, then definitely go for the Ocean Group.
And it would be interesting to have compare, because that can be a really good aspect of the difference between well-accomplished anime redubbing and poorly accomplished anime redubbing.
So yeah, but as we kind of go into the modern day, anime has unfortunately kind of fallen in America.
Yeah.
It's not as popular as it used to be.
It had a huge boom, a gigantic boom. And then it kind of got stereotyped a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
Is what really caused it, because you got the fans who were really gung-ho about it, and then you had the fans who were just kind of into it, and they weren't as vocal. And as such, it kind of got stigmatized from the... You all know them. You all know at least one of them.
Yeah, the weeaboos.
The weeaboos. The big anime fans. And these people, they are first very dedicated and very loyal to it. but at the same time, they can be very harsh to any kind of changes or criticisms brought against it, which, of course, is necessary for any industry to continue to grow, to be able to restructure, relook at itself, find out what it's doing right, find out what it's doing wrong that is popular nonetheless, and put a stop to it. And this can cause sort of a death in the industry when the fans become so integrated into the creative process that basically the staff become kind of choked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can't say that I have like a very in-depth area into like the anime industry in America. I cannot say that at all. But it feels that sometimes it's that you have people trying to affect a change that they think would be a good idea, and in the long run ends up being an awful idea. And a lot of anime companies that had popped up in the 90s in the last 10 years or so
are pretty much gone.
Are gone.
I mean, we have Funimation, and what else do we have?
We have Funimation, we have Viz, we have...
Do we have ADV anymore?
ADV's gone.
Yeah.
ADV was bought by Funimation, I think. We have Aniplex. I'll look up a couple more.
The point is there were a multitude of companies that were just coming up in the middle of the 90s that are, I mean, they're gone. They're outskis. There was not a market sustainable enough for that much stuff.
Sentai Filmworks is another one.
Yeah.
Recently, NIS America. That's basically it, and Media Blasters.
One of the interesting things about animation, about anime dubbing, particularly as the industry has sort of kind of started to hone in and specialize, particularly in terms of which companies are still around, is you have a huge influx of people, thanks to the connectivity of the internet, who are taking it upon themselves to fan dub, basically, is what it's
and that came with the rise of the streaming video.
Exactly.
And of course,
particularly it came rise to the phenomenon of the viewing group.
Yeah.
Groups of people who would watch online together as a group in order to experience it together as you would watching it at home, if the people don't necessarily live near you. And with that comes another aspect of sort of quality gain and loss, because there are some people who know a lot about the industry, or who handle it in a very professional manner. And they honestly do produce actually pretty good work. I wouldn't really count it on the same level as professional work.
Yeah.
But it's very watchable, and it can help you experience the show that you may, enjoy but aren't, about to learn the Japanese language in order to experience. Then you have the larger group, which is people who just kind of get together and are like,
let's make a thing.
Let's spend an afternoon doing this. And it can kind of, I think this is also a bit contributed to the sort of the downturn of anime in terms of quality, with what we're getting in terms of localization here in America.
And we come to like nowadays, it's kind of, it had the boom in the 90s, kind of fell here. We're not back on a rise, I wouldn't think. It's too early to say that we're on a rise again, but there definitely is a dedicated market to the anime fandom. I could say that because we go to A-Kon. That's 20,000 people.
Oh, yeah. That's one of the biggest, it's not the biggest, but it is one of the biggest cons here in America, and it's been going on this is going to be its 25th year. Yeah,
which I have problems with that, but...
Well, I mean, but that there helps to solidify the idea that it is, in some ways, a sustainable market, as long as you're playing to the right crowd. Which is difficult to do because it's always in flux, particularly this kind of market.
Yeah, I think that's what I can best say about the current market, is that it's definitely in flux.
And one of the things that's happening with the current market specifically is as the companies have started to sort of pan out, you're getting a lot of professionals who are going to more steady jobs, and as such, the industry is kind of desperate for people. So it's answered this by sort of becoming self-aware of itself.
Yeah.
And in this way, you see a lot of people who are doing fan dubbing online starting to be pulled in by professional companies.
Yeah, and it's weird because there have been major arguments about which is better, a dub or dub, or it's the famous argument of dub versus sub. Is it better when a series is dubbed over to have an English dialogue, or is it better when there's simply subtitles over the Japanese dialogue?
Yeah.
And it's actually gotten big enough now to where there are now there are now companies like I think Sentai Filmworks is one of the major ones who just released DVDs with no dub. One of the big ones was Toradora was released without any dub at all. I think another one was Hinamari Sketch was another show I enjoy. I think was recently released also with no dub.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're just subtitled, but they're sold at the same price.
But they are official releases designed to help sort of send the message that we're not really comfortable with how it's been done in the past. We don't feel like it's going to be done properly.
It could be that I can't say for certain why they did it, but maybe they just saw that the market didn't want a dub, or maybe it would cost too much to do a dub.
Yeah.
There's no real answer to what it is.
Or maybe they wanted to just keep the original artists that they picked as the representative.
And that's why I mentioned the argument earlier. Maybe these are the people that had the argument when they were younger, and now own a company and own these licenses.
Sticking to their morals.
So now you have it. Now, not only in modern market do you have a separation of dub versus sub on the fan market, you now have a separation of sub versus dub on the official market. So now there's almost no telling nowadays if a series that gets picked up will be dubbed over or if it will be just released subtitled.
And this does have a huge impact on how the industry is going to continue to flourish in America, or if it is going to. One
of the biggest effects of this argument is that now there's not much localization anymore.
Yeah.
Because now, most anime DVDs that aren't like a major release, which is like Pokemon, will actually release their stuff with both English and Japanese audio, and because of that, they can't really edit their episodes anymore to fit one or the other, because now they want to play to both.
It has to be interchangeable in between with the episode.
I got a $90 Neon Genesis Evangelion box set, and it had both of them on there, and you could play either of them, and they would fit pretty well. And and because of that, it's gotten more of a hassle to actually dub something, because not only do you now have to say dialogue that matches what they said, you also have to have it in a kind of a timestamp to where it fits kind of along with what
digitally with the actual initial.
Yeah, because they can't edit it now.
Yeah.
Or they can only do minimal editing without really affecting the scene.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and this is part of a growing phenomenon, as everything does in the entertainment industry. Everything grows and changes. But this is the reason that we're speaking about this is because this is very distinct from just standard American dubbing of American-produced shows, or even things brought in from English-speaking countries. They don't have to redub them because they already speak a language that we understand.
Yeah.
But when The Office was first brought over from Britain, we had an American version of The Office. We didn't have to have those actors come in and dub the quintessential versions of their characters from the other show because it already spoke that. But this is specifically a part of it that is distinct to dubbing and redubbing and will be affected by how the market grows. It's also, in a lot of ways, I think, being affected by piracy.
Yeah, and you can't really mention the modern anime market without mentioning piracy, because that's the biggest effect on it. I buy stuff when I can. I don't have much money lately, so I don't buy many anime DVDs because they're kind of
they're difficult to get a hold of too.
It's the self-eating snake.
Yeah.
Because I don't have enough money, so I can't buy the more expensive anime.
Yeah.
And because I can't buy the more expensive anime, they can't sell it at a lower price because they can't afford to do it without losing money. So they have to raise the price, which I can't buy. It's what's it called?
It's the Catch-22.
Catch-22, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and this will have a prominent impact if it continues on the market, specifically not just because of series that are willing to sell their dubbing rights. More importantly, the terms of quality. And we've seen a lot of the studios that do this stuff. We've actually worked with a few of the professionals in the field.
Yeah, we've been to Faulkner Studios. We've done some work there before. They're most well known for doing the Dragon Ball Z music voice or music dubbing, I guess is what it's called.
We got to go to Cakewalk Studios as well.
Which one was Cakewalk?
It was with Eric.
That was Faulkner.
That was Faulkner? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Anyway, but that was an experience. We've seen the whole process at Funimation a couple of times.
Yeah, we've done a few auditions there.
We haven't actually done any professional work with them, but again, that a lot of it has to come to do with the market and what you have room for, people you trust to do a professional job. But this will affect the quality of it because we've seen the actors. They're dedicated people. But at the end of the day, you're going to get done what you have the ability to get done, and you're going to get done what you're paid to get done. And
definitely.
that will change as the market changes.
So at this point, it's really kind of hard to say where it's going to go.
That's kind of a toss-up. I'm worried that it's going to be affected by piracy in the industry and
I think they're in the right direction now with
you think so?
With Crunchyroll.
Okay. Crunchyroll is doing a lot of good things actually to help bring just the media together in a different way. Does
it show dubbed anime or does it only show sub?
No, it shows dubbed anime. I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
It does. Because it's just whatever licenses are available here in America, and a lot of it is dubbed.
Okay. Netflix has a big anime section on there.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's one of the things I love about Crunchyroll is it's essentially Netflix just for specifically Asian media, because it doesn't just do anime, but it does like K-dramas and stuff like that, which are always hilarious to watch.
Yeah, I think one of the big things we're gonna it's way too early now to say that we're up for another boom, which I've heard people talk about. I don't think we're going to see one in the next few years. No,
but I do think a lot of the framework is there for people to take a new look at it. Because one of the great things about this industry is it is very, just like the Star Trek industry, or the Star Wars industry, it's very reliant upon the fans. And you've seen a lot lately where fans themselves are becoming sort of self-aware in terms of what they're willing to represent and what they're not. It's not all just about living the experience anymore and catching some sort of high off of it. People are really starting to take pride in what they represent as a whole and come together as a community to decide what they feel is responsible and what they feel isn't. And I think that's really, in the long run, going to leave room for, professionals to come in and build something better for it.
Yeah. I think the main thing I'll say about the idea of a boom is what the big companies now will do with what they have, and what they do with the growing industry and the growing technology. Technology is the biggest thing because DVDs are kind of being phased out now for Blu-rays, and for
digital downloads.
Digital downloads is the main thing, and I think a lot of companies are doing the smart thing right now with Crunchyroll, with Netflix, with Hulu, and just with allowing the things to be downloaded. So I've noticed that this has kind of been more of a discussion on anime than anime dubbing. So this will probably just be anime.
Yeah, there we go.
But we'll talk a bit more about dubbing in a second. The biggest thing that'll define if we make it into another boom period is how, because we have some big releases coming up. We have Kill la Kill with it, which is a first major series of a big company. Yeah. Or a company that's going to be big.
It's already changing how the company's born.
Kickstarter is also affecting it too.
Kickstarter is becoming a big thing.
And so we might end up getting more of a more indie people coming up too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
We have Sailor Moon is in flux.
Can't wait. So excited.
There's actually talk about the fact that Sailor Moon actually might only be a one-off.
I don't care, man.
But yeah, Sailor Moon returning, it might end up affecting the market depending on who.
Well, I mean, it was a big series back in the day.
So let's talk a little bit more about dubbing now. Now that we're talking about Sailor Moon.
Well, I mean, you just touched on how this is becoming a discussion about anime. But I think the reason that that's so essential to the idea that it becomes a discussion about anime is because dubbing is our only experience with it. That's the only way that we were introduced to it. And it is a central point of the industry here in America. And with more companies starting to just go with subs over dubs, you can see the anime community kind of taking a dive because of it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the framework is in tune for resurgence. I think particularly in terms of dubbing, you're going to have a lot of people, a spike in quality with people that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah.
Particularly because you can go online right now, and there are people who can teach you how to do master audio. You can connect with people who would be interested in doing dubbing of the like that don't necessarily live in your area.
Yeah, we could go online right now and build a fan dub in about a week.
Yeah, it happens. And it's becoming, like I said, a very integral part of the profession, because there have been some notable online fan dubbers and fan singers.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's become an integral part of the anime industry, for better or for worse.
Well, I mean, yeah, and that's going to be, everything that comes from fans is going to be, let's be honest, something you take with a grain of salt, because in one way you're going to get people who are interpreting something as a piece of art, as malleable and flexible, to be treated with, care and understanding, but not something that's wrong with taking risks with, and then you'll have the elitists. People that
are literally just there to...
Yeah, people who are just excited that they're being a part of the series, which is something that's important, but that aren't really putting any effort to how it's presented, because they're just like, oh, don't worry, people will like it because it's about this,
And then there are people that are just like, there are certain people that I've mentioned in past podcasts that are not this cartoon podcast that I've mentioned are simply there because they are pretty.
It's known as the novelty effect. They're known for something, for some specific aspect of one thing, and as such, their name is plastered over every aspect of that thing.
Should I go ahead and name names?
Let's go ahead and not name any names in this.
Okay, so there are certain fan dubbers who have become official dubbers who I have mentioned in the past that I have disagreement with. I'm not going to name any names right now, but I do kind of have agreements and disagreements on the fan dubbing community. We've almost done it in the past. Mm-hmm. We almost did it with
Warren High School.
Warren High School Host Club.
I'm really glad we dodged a bullet on there.
Yeah,
we were really stupid in our younger days.
Yeah, we were.
We'll be showing off at our panel.
Yeah, yeah. But to kind of talk about dubbing in general, we talked about Sailor Moon. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about some dubs we like and don't like.
Okay.
And what kind of makes them good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
So Sailor Moon is kind of some of our first. Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball Z was probably some of my first. And Digimon and Pokemon and Cardcaptor Sakura.
Yeah.
the Saturday morning lot.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Everything that played early in the day that kids are...
So we talked a little bit about localization.
That's a trading card game.
Yeah, definitely. We talked a little bit about localization earlier. I was wondering if you had an opinion about just plain censorship, about a series having ideas that a company won't think will fly in America.
Well, we saw that in everything, and a lot of this comes to... This is an aspect more than just localization of plain old westernization. This is very... What's the word I'm looking for? This is very specific to our method of doing things, particularly here in America. Because even if you go to other European countries and Asian countries, you'll find that they approach certain topics with a lot less aggression, I think, than we do.
Yeah.
Particularly in how it defines it. I think this, speaking politically, I think this goes back to just how young we are as a country, but blah-de-blah-de-blah. Our founders were the Puritans, and they had their own ways about doing things, and that's all an entirely different subject. But because of that... This feeds into every aspect of American business and how we deal with things, particularly that we pull from other countries.
Definitely.
In terms of censorship and display, and how we produce things and how we rework things that we take from other countries.
So I want to ask, because I'm specifically when I talk about censorship, I'm specifically talking about Sailor Moon, mm-hmm. and there's one specific example. Mm-hmm. Which is a pair of characters who are called cousins. And in Japan, they were not cousins.
They were kissing cousins, as we say in the South.
Yeah, they were... Okay. In Japan, there are characters named Haruka and Michiru, who in Japan were a gay couple.
They were lovers.
In America, the idea of gay did not really fly, even in the 90s.
And in a lot of ways, it's still become kind of a shtick.
But I was going to ask you...
But back then, it was a much bigger thing.
If they were to remake it now and dub it over and present it as a kid's show, which it was, do you think we might get the same censorship nowadays?
I have no idea, and that's a big big thing that I'm really excited about seeing with the series specifically is how they handle that. Because they renamed all the characters. They westernized a good part of the show, and that specifically was one of the more controversial subjects that was, the fans were completely divided on.
Yeah.
And I really hope that this is something that the company in Japan is aware of, which I'm pretty sure they are, and that the company that handles it in America is aware of. And I'm curious on how they'll approach it, because with the way that cartoons act these days, there's no way to know.
Yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say in some modern kids cartoons, we have gay characters.
Oh, I mean, it goes back to the whole controversy of Marceline and Princess Bubblegum. You remember the person that was fired because of the announcement that was made?
Yeah, which is, of course, I'm going to go ahead and say here, we're not saying one way or another if they're gay or not.
Yeah.
We have no opinion on it.
That's the point, is that we don't know, and there's no real concrete evidence to support it.
To support it.
But it became sort of a rumor that acted on that. And in the past, you would expect people to be very gung-ho and slamming their fists down about it. But it wasn't really handled that way from the way that fans viewed it. So I'm really interested to see how the company that dubs the new Sailor Moon, if such an instance is introduced, handles it. Because in the past, we could make a decided decision about which way it would go. We could say, they'll be against it, or they'll be totally for it. Things are so in flux right now.
Yeah, and that's
societal-wise.
And that's kind of what, that's kind of what the anime industry is. It's in flux. Like, we can't bring it over and just say, well, we said last time the Cousins, let's just say this time the Cousins. Because the only reason that we changed that is because it just
wouldn't have flown at the time. It would not have worked.
Especially for a show geared towards, I think,
impressionable young girls.
Like 4 to 10-year-old girls.
Yeah.
It's not a subject that would have been allowed. But nowadays we have, it's now a movement.
Well, yeah, in a lot of kids media, the official part of it is that they're staying away from saying anything like that. It's a very smart move. They don't acknowledge that, but there are entire industries now based upon the idea of the gays are a respected, accepted group now.
Yeah.
So if I were to pander a guess, I would guess that they would still go with cousins, or at least people who don't have a relationship like that.
You think so? Because I think if they were to dub it over right now and gear it towards, because Sailor Moon was never really a small girl show. It was more a kind of, I'd say 10 to 13-year-old girl show. I think if they were to do it now, they would keep it original.
And that's why I was very listening very carefully to you specifying that they produced it as a show for young girls.
Yeah. Because
if it's for older people, let's say even people that are, as you said, between 10 and 13.
Yeah.
Those kids are aware.
Yeah.
Of lesbians and gays and all that shtick, and I mean we've seen no hatred come from them at all. I honestly think that it's really a toss-up. I think it would basically just be people in the studio being like, how do we want to handle this?
I think it depends on who they're gearing towards in this situation.
Yeah.
Where if it were geared again towards 4 to 10-year-olds, which I don't know why they would nowadays, especially with the kind of stuff that happens in Sailor Moon.
Yeah.
If they were to do that again, I don't even think they would not have the gay angle. But I think if they were smart, they would still have, they would still not call them cousins. They would simply simply have an ignorance of relationship.
Yeah, they would just keep it moot.
Yeah.
And sort of blank. I would agree with that. I'm just waiting to see how
that's Sailor Moon.
But that is a good thing to discuss when you're discussing localization, is censorship, because it occurs everywhere.
And it happened a lot more in the 90s than it does nowadays.
Oh, definitely. Because people, societies particularly, and communities are so much less insular now.
Yeah.
Thanks to the internet. Ideas are spread more rapidly. It's easy to talk to somebody about how you feel about something, and it's easier specifically to listen to your fans, the ones that are really dedicated. And base your opinions upon that.
So, let's see. Let me check something real quick. So we're kind of getting towards the area. Let's talk about dubs we like first off.
Okay.
So we kind of mentioned Cowboy Bebop earlier.
Cowboy Bebop. Yes.
That gave rise to a... What's his name? No. Name of the main character.
The guy that does Spike Lee. I know. Any other day. I'll tell you. Huh? Steve Bloom.
Steve Bloom. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Sarah.
My girlfriend Sarah, she's downstairs laughing at us because we're nerds. That gave rise to Steve Bloom. It was a very distinct voice, a very distinct sound. It's a voice you could pick out of a lineup anytime. Which, if you listen to Steve Bloom, you'll actually find out that he's very dexterous in his ability to handle
it's just
voices.
that everybody asks him to do
But
Spike.
everybody hires him to play Spike.
And a lot of people nowadays would actually probably know him more for Legend of Korra, where he plays the main villain in the first season.
And he does it. Steve Bloom has always been a very quality voice actor.
What? Shut up.
Steve Bloom has always been a very quality voice actor. And I really think that particularly working with him helped the industry immensely, because Cowboy Bebop was a front runner. It was a forefront show at the beginning of the boom.
Outlaw Star was another big one that I think had some excellent dubbing.
Yeah.
Dragon Ball Z, the Funimation dub, probably had some of the better dubbing to fit what it was doing.
Yeah.
Especially since we actually got to work with the actress for Frieza. Who was very nice.
She was so cool. She was just like, how old was she, do you think?
Like probably in her 50s.
She was just the bubbliest person. She was so neat.
Yeah, we're big fans for her. We didn't even know she was who she was until
she just cackled off of the voice. It was so cool.
Here,
look her up.
If you give me just 1 second, I can give you the name.
But some other animes I think were dubbed particularly well.
Linda Young.
Linda Young. Linda Young was her name. She's fantastic. You all know her as the voice of Frieza if you watch Dragon Ball Z.
Lately, she's been in Fairy Tail, Case Closed.
Just some amazing stuff.
Yeah.
One of my favorite anime is Furikuri.
Yeah.
And I also thought it was actually very well dubbed here in America.
Yeah.
Which I think A, the fact that they were working with professionals, B, the fact that it's only like 6 episodes long, really helps you kind of budget better.
Yeah.
So you can get better quality out of the stuff you're using.
One that was actually pretty good, that I don't know how many people would agree with me, was the Excel Saga dub.
I loved Excel Saga.
Which has a funny story behind it, because originally it was done by
There are people who think Excel Saga was dubbed poorly?
Because it was in that transition area between when...
Well, I thought it was done cheesily, but, I mean, the show is literally, like, just video cheese, so I thought it was perfect.
Let's see.
Particularly Il Palazzo's just voice not matching him at all.
Famously, she is done by a voice actress named Kotono Mitsuishi.
Okay. She's known for being really fast.
Yeah, she's actually more famously known as the voice for Sailor Moon.
Yeah.
But she also did the voice for Excel Saga, and yes, she is actually a well-known Japanese speed talker.
She can ramble off about anything, like, really quickly.
And is actually a funny story about that is, in the American version, apparently the Japanese version was so good and so fast that she actually wore out the original voice actress in America.
The original voice actress in America, because if you watch the show, they got people who sounded similar, but like it's from like which episode on?
Episode 13 was the last one for the original.
Yeah, everything after that, her voice is sharper and more and more putting on a voice. You can hear it, and that's because there's so much speed talking in it. She just goes a mile a minute with this stuff. And in the first episode particularly, there's this very long scene where she's just talking for like a minute straight, and there's probably like 300 words in it. And the actress blew out her voice trying to do it.
From what I've heard, it might be, there are kind of two stories about it, because the original voice actress did the first 13 episodes,
Mm-hmm.
then about episode 14 to the end, it was changed to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, one of the things is she blew out her voice doing all the speed talking.
Mm-hmm.
A more prevailing theory is that there's a point in episode 13 where she basically screams at the top of her lungs.
No.
And people are thinking that's probably what caused it.
Probably what killed it.
There's no official reason, but at episode 14, she's played by a different person.
I do love that story. If you haven't watched Excel Saga, go watch it. So
another one that a lot of people actually disagree with me and say that wasn't very well dubbed, but I actually liked, Azumanga Daioh.
Yeah. Azumanga Daioh, that whole show, I think you'll always find people who even have really good opinions and well thought out ideas will think it's bad just because that show is very much a niche show.
And it kind of gets to what I was thinking about earlier with dubbing is especially with localization. Osmond Dio actually went in the opposite
Yeah, they did
direction.
full on.
It was literally just a transliteration of the Japanese dubbing. They even kept in honorifics, which is highly controversial when it comes to localization.
And more importantly, I'm not for honorifics, honestly.
In American dubbing, no.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it, and I think it is a cultural aspect of it. But more importantly, it sounds fake in America.
I'll say this: if you are doing a show that is heavily in the Japanese culture, then I have no problem with honorifics.
That's fine.
If it's like literally you're in a Japanese town with that's heavily referenced. Like something I'm playing now is a game called Persona 4 Golden. It is very heavily in a very small Japanese town. References a lot of the stuff they do there and use honorifics. It's completely dubbed over in the game and in the anime, and they keep like stuff like honorifics and references to like Japanese meals and stuff. I actually have no problem with that because it is a Japanese culture game.
Yeah.
And Japanese culture thing. When it's stuff like Pokemon.
Yeah.
You don't keep an honorific.
I don't see the point of it. There are a lot of shows that I actually think honorifics are fine and can almost improve. Like Basilisk. Basilisk was a really good anime. Yeah. And they had like even the ones we're not used to, like Dono. Yeah. And stuff like that. That was legitimately part of the culture, and that's rooted in the whole I believe the Heian period when the shogun was overtaking and killing off all the samurai. So that is a central theme, sort of.
So like stuff like Outlaw Star Cowboy Bebop, you don't really want honor.
I don't see the point of it.
Two more I'm going to mention that I really liked. One was Tenchi Muyo. Especially since it actually had some voice actresses that actually quit after Tenchi Muyo. One of them being Ryoko's voice actress, who was very good at her job, and then did nothing else.
Yeah. Well,
and then one that surprised a lot of people because it's actually a very modern show. I've only watched a little bit of it, but for what I've seen, I've actually enjoyed it. The American dub for Penny and Stocking with Garter Belt.
I haven't seen it.
Apparently, they did a really good job with it, which kind of doesn't surprise me because it's Funimation. Yeah. They've been hit or miss, but it's more hit than miss.
While we're talking about localization and dubbing in America, and particularly Funimation, one that I thought was really good, not just in terms of the dubbing, but also in the rewriting, is Crayon Shin-chan. The reason I say this is because when they first bought the rights to it, they didn't get the actual rights to the written dialogue. So they basically had to make stuff up as they go.
You know another big series that actually had that happen?
Which one?
Samurai Pizza Cats.
Really?
They got the rights to the anime, but not to the scripts. So the entire show was completely made with original dialogue.
Samurai Pizza Cats was that was a thing that happened to people, and
so since we're kind of talking about that, let's kind of talk about dubs that we don't like very much. And I'm going to go ahead and say that even though I was a fan of it in the past, not a huge fan of Cardcaptor Sakura.
I have never seen Cardcaptor.
And actually, since we're talking about localization, they screwed that series up so bad.
Yeah, I've heard this.
It's actually a comedy event to go read the episode list of Cardcaptor between Japanese and American, because in Japanese will go 1, 2, 3. In America it'll go 7, 11, 2, 1. There are episodes that are combined. There are episodes that are cut out. They screwed that series up bad. And not only that, they changed characters. Like Sakura's friend Tomoyo was changed to a Valley Girl. Yeah. The only character that stayed basically the same was Sakura. Yeah. That's it. The dubbing was awful. And I was going to... Actually, when I was saying that earlier, I was originally going to say Pokemon was one that I didn't like anymore. I will say that I kind of still like Pokemon.
Well, I mean, I was going to talk about Pokemon, and you get pretty much everything from 4Kids, because they treat voice acting there very weird. They had a lot of change-outs with it, particularly in terms of actors. Like, even before it was like, I've been doing the character for like 6 years, I want to do something else. Within the first few episodes, they had like characters swapping out voices, and it was very odd. Yeah. The whole way that they handled everything there.
I think in the beginning, like, I know James changed between like
it was originally somebody else, and then Eric Stewart, who also played Brock, started playing James. Yeah. And
a lot of things. I would actually consider this more just getting used to the role. But from the first season, from the beginning to the end, a lot of the characters change how they act.
Yeah.
But that's just acting.
Well, and I mean, I try not to be too critical of that one because that company was pretty new at that point.
Yeah.
In terms of what they were handling. So I'm going to give them the benefit of learning as you go.
A dub that I won't say I like or hate is Digimon Season 1 and 2.
Okay.
Digimon Season 3 I actually like it a lot, and that's partly because they actually got some good voice actors, including Steve Bloom, who did not do his Spike Spiegel voice.
Yeah, he didn't.
He does it for another character in that show, but he plays Guilmon, which is a completely different voice than what you expect.
The whole time.
Yeah, and
you never get it.
And it actually had someone who doesn't do anime voice acting regularly, which is can't remember her name, but she plays Rika in Digimon Tamers, and also played Gaz in Invader Zim.
Yeah. That's really all she's known for.
Those are the two main things. But while I do like a lot of Digimon's original dubbing, especially with characters like Kari, who's played by, I want to say Laura Jill Miller, but I'm pretty sure I'm wrong. There are some characters that I don't like. And mostly that's stuff like Myotismon, who I really don't like. Because I thought he was too more... I thought they tried to go Dracula, but then brought it back. So now they're in a weird flux area.
Where it's not too much and it's not too little.
Yeah.
But it's not just right.
Yeah. And it just feels weird because it doesn't feel like a voice that gigantic... Because in Japan, he had a very deep voice. Which, by the way, if you're interested in seeing Digimon in Japanese, they have it on Netflix.
Yay! Netflix is a wonderful tool.
I'm looking up who Kari was played by in America.
That company has sucked up so much.
Laura Jill Miller, I got it right!
Yes! High five!
Laura Jill Miller is probably one of my favorite anime voice actors, even though she hasn't done a lot. She was in her two most known things were Digimon and Eureka 7, I think, was the other one, where she plays the main character in that as well. But yeah, there are some characters that did really well in Digimon, which is like her, and I liked Izzy and Mimi and Sora a lot. Then there are characters like TK and Matt, who annoyed the hell out of me, and then you get to season 2, you have Davis.
Gotta find my sister!
You have Davis and Yoli and Cody, who are all annoying characters in the original, and are more annoying in the dub.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that's totally the actor's fault, but they didn't help.
The only one I can really list that I didn't care for, because if I don't like an anime's dub, I usually don't end up paying attention to it, because I'd much rather listen to it than read it. One that I it's not terrible, but I just didn't particularly like it, was actually the Gurren Lagann dub. Because I hear a lot of people in there that don't sound like an organic character. I can hear a lot of putting on a voice in there.
I think my biggest problem with the Gurren Lagann dub is that, again, Steve Bloom's in it.
Yeah.
But I felt that they used the wrong Steve Bloom voice. Because he plays the stereotypical gay character.
Yeah.
But he just
doesn't sell. You know?
He just kind of does Spike Spiegel with a gay lisp.
Yeah.
Which I think was the wrong way to do it.
And I mean, I have this problem a lot with you know, a lot of things in dubbing, in redubbing, and just standard dubbing, is I'm not a big proponent of people who sound like they're putting on a voice.
Yeah.
Like and you can hear the difference. Like when you watch Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah.
Every voice in there sounds organic. It sounds like it's a real voice that's coming out, and it's entirely intentional. Even Ed's voice, which is weird.
Yeah.
Sounds like a naturally derived voice. And then you watch something like Gurren Lagann, and you can tell people are lowering their voices in order to sound more like the character they look like. It's that tiny bit of change that tells you that it's not the naturally derived voice.
Speaking of, a dub of a show that I kind of watched but don't really remember much of, that I actually listened to recently and don't like. Mobile Suit Gundam Wing, which was played on Toonami. If you go back and listen to it, they all sound like they're about to fall asleep.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like they had any energy when they were ever recording anything. It just sounded like that they didn't want to be there.
They probably didn't, man.
Probably not.
They're probably just like, so, paycheck? Paycheck. Good. Well, I mean, and there are aspects where I feel like, you know, not necessarily as dedicated voice acting can still produce something of relatively sustainable quality, like with Crayon Shin-Chan, where they're really just about the deadpan and the jokes.
Yeah.
Or even something as goofy as Hamtaro, where the stupider your character sounds, the better it plays off.
Yeah, and that's a very young kid show.
Yeah, and I loved Hamtaro. It's a guilty pleasure.
One that has not officially been done, but I think I will not like. I talked about last episode, Danganronpa,
Mm-hmm.
which is getting an American game release.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard the dub voice for that,
Mm-hmm.
and I hate it. I think that they made several missteps in casting, and Danganronpa the animation uses the same voice actors from the game in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering if they do
I think
it.
It's going to be the same here.
It'll probably be the same here, just to not have to recast everything.
Yeah.
So, and if they do that, I don't think I'll like it because I've heard the voices from the game, and I don't like those.
Yeah.
So unless they step up their game, then...
Well, and I'm sure it's happened before.
Yeah.
It happens a lot in Japan with drama CDs and the like.
So yeah, final thoughts.
Final thoughts?
Do you think anime dubbing is going to get better or worse in the next 5 years?
I think it's going to, the official stuff is going to increase in quality. I do. Because that's just the time we're in now, where people are using their free time in order to improve things, even off the record of expenditures. People are getting very into an art because they're starting to respect it more, and they're starting to treat it as something that's worth preserving and honing. I think we'll get an increase in stuff that's terrible, but the stuff that's good, I think, is going to get a lot better.
Yeah. The biggest thing will be what really kind of starts to dominate the market, because we still have a lot of dub stuff, but it's curious how much like subtitled animation will just start to dominate the field. Because I know a lot of people nowadays who will buy like a 2 audio track DVD and only listen to the Japanese one.
Yeah.
Because I have the Evangelion one and I don't listen to the English stuff.
Yeah.
I don't particularly hate it. I just prefer the Japanese version.
Well, one of the reasons I think it's really cool is because one of the things I find so interesting about the anime community as a whole is because it's entirely the American anime community is that the way that we mimic cultures is completely different. Because Japan, during its Reconstruction era and during the time when it completely westernized, began taking culture from America and particularly England and Europe, and that became the central proponent of everything they did. But with the anime community, from it coming across the sea into America, that insular community is almost the exact same thing but swapped. Our culture is beginning, how we handle things like dubbing and creating is starting to mimic how they do it.
Yeah.
It's coming from them first and then coming in here. And they have a lot more quality in how they treat things, particularly in how fans express it and how it's produced.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's going to get better.
So I can't say from my perspective if it will get better or worse. I think one of the major points of it getting better or worse, though, lies within what they do.
Yes.
Like what they do with the market.
Yeah.
If they just continue down the path that they are now, it's not going to get better.
No.
They are already getting better because, like I said, Pain Sucking with Garter Belt was a pretty damn good dub.
Yeah.
And
not on a show that you would expect.
Yeah.
Because it was literally just a show that was parodying every other form of animation.
Yeah. There are people who are official dub actors nowadays who I do not agree are very good.
Mm-hmm.
And they're starting to get more and more series that I would usually watch.
Mm-hmm.
So on one end you have very good dubs, on the other end you have very bad dubs. It depends on where they go from there.
Yep.
So that's my perspective. I can't say for better or for worse if it will get better or if it will get worse.
Yeah.
So that's my perspective.
I think the independents are going to be where it's at. I think that's what it's going to be.
Yeah,
because that's what decides everything these days.
Yep.
Because the entire new market is booming and rife with people who are dedicated. Anyway.
Yeah. So thanks everybody for joining us.
Thanks so much.
I'm Zach.
I'm Evan.
And this has been That Cartoon Podcast.
See you guys later.
Trivia tunes. Danny Stupid. Trivia tunes. Danny Stupid.